John served on the Breckenridge Town Council from 1998 until 2002, then as a two-term mayor from 2006 to 2016. Joel, I don't know if you all have an alumni association or not, but he significantly advanced efforts to create affordable housing, including launching projects and participating in the formation of a county housing authority. His humble demeanor, as I am told, as a dentist, served him well in navigating the contentious issues in public service. John tells an informative story of his experience negotiating the growth spurt of a mountain town, trying to meet the needs of residents and workers alike. Sounds familiar. John?
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. I have to tell you, this is a beautiful facility. My only suggestion would be an entrance sign on that building. Just so I know. I've always wanted to come up this road. I've never come up this road. I've lived in Breckenridge for 36 years. I used to kayak on the Arkansas River. I've never been up this valley. It's spectacular. So thank you for having me here. Thanks to the Mountain Prince and Hot Springs folks for letting us utilize this beautiful facility. As I said, I've been living in Breckenridge for 36 years. I moved there from Denver. I moved to southeast Denver. Met my wife in our senior year in high school. We've been married for 44 years. And we moved to Breckenridge in 1980. I have two wonderful daughters who are grown now, and now we have a 19-month-old grandson. So we're having fun with that as well. I still practice dentistry 4 days a week, and I'm totally out of politics. This seems to be my avocation, talking about what Summit County, Breckenridge, Colorado, has done over the last 20 years. And that's my story. It's not 20 years long. I'm totally IT challenged. I have to schedule for my wife in the house. Can you hear me okay when I'm speaking in the mic? A little closer? Is that better? Okay. So anyhow, this has been a 20-year process for Breckenridge and Summit County. It started really in 1996 with something we called land banking, and the town actually bought a piece of property with some excess money in the general fund, and that then morphed into what was called Pinewood Housing, which is a apartment complex, rental complex, about 85 units, 90 units. It rents at about a 98% occupancy rate. It's been fabulously successful. It's rent controlled. We make the rents affordable for all levels of AMI. There's a couple of, no, there's 3 or 4 ADA accessible units as well that some people with wheelchairs are able to get into. That was kind of the beginning of our thinking about affordable housing, attainable housing, workforce housing. We call it all those things. Are we up yet? There we are. Let's go to the next one. So this is a talk I gave in Glenwood Springs back in September. And that's when Reed so graciously invited me to come over here and chat with you guys. There is a connection between policy changes, and I know you guys are going through some code changes perhaps in Buena Vista, Salida. It's all about some policy changes, taking time, and then you ultimately do get results. And as I said, it's taken us 20 years. This to me is paradise. Chaffee County's paradise, Summit County's paradise, Pitkin County, Eagle County. We live in a fabulous place. It's very attractive to wealthy people, very attractive to people that are in pursuit of a great lifestyle, maybe not so wealthy. We're highly impacted by lots and lots of people. At the time that I've been in Breckenridge, we've seen our skier counts go from about 400,000 or 500,000 a year to 1.6, 1.7 million a year. And that's just skiers, and all of a sudden summer is starting to approach the busyness of winter. Telluride, it's already happened. It's busier in Telluride in the summer than it is in the winter. You guys, I don't know what your balance is, but I gotta believe you have a huge summer impact with your boating, kayaking, hiking, climbing, but you've got Monarch Mountain, you've got tons of mountain biking, so I've got to believe you have a lot of things that really balance out your tourist economy. Next slide. So this is Pinewood 1. This is what we built in 1996. This was a public-private partnership with a group called Coram Development out of Denver. And the town put the land under it. Coram built the project. The town gets the project back, well, 50 years from 1996, so that would be 2046. The town will get this project back for $1. But in the meantime, Coram Development is making a profit, not huge, but they're doing fine. They have an owner's rep that lives in Breckenridge, who's a close friend of mine, and this has been a fabulously successful project. Next slide. In 1997, the town of Breckenridge, the town of Blue River, Summit County government put together something called the Joint Upper Blue Master Plan. And that's where we looked at, basically the Upper Blue is from Dillon Reservoir to Hoosier Pass. And I don't know if you have anything that's similar here, but you guys have a valley with big mountains on the side, just like we do. The big mountains are all Forest Service, federal land, but some mining claims. The valley's a lot of private property. Our vision was to not allow the mountains to be built on. We didn't want view corridors compromised. We didn't want roads all over the place up in the backcountry. So we created this Joint Upper Blue Master Plan where we limited the size of dwellings up in the hills, and we tried to get the density to come down to the valley floor. Now, you may have a whole different way to look at it, but it was a way for us to get density out of the hills, bring it down to the valley floor. It was also a mechanism. We could buy a mining claim and end up with 2-3 units of density, and we could transfer that to the valley floor. A unit of density now costs about $50,000, so if a developer needs to buy some density to build something on the valley floor, he or she could buy density from a density bank that we created back in 1997. And now our backcountry is truly our backcountry. Very few dwellings, small roads. Fire department's happy about that. They don't have to take their big machines up there to fight fires or anything because there isn't much to fight. That was a strategy that started this whole process. Then in 2000, the town of Breckenridge worked on an affordable housing strategy, and the key element is the fact that we decided that if you want to annex into the town of Breckenridge, and I don't know how that works here, you had to supply 80% of your units had to be affordable. And affordable could be 50% AMI to about 120% AMI. It could actually be 40% of AMI. And that was a demand that the town of Breckenridge made on developers that they wanted to annex into the town of Breckenridge for water, sewer, all sorts of stuff. It worked very well at first. Then there was some pushback from the developers, and that's 20% market units, 80% affordable housing units, and the pushback came from, well, geez, we just can't quite make it. Well, we evolved into being a little more flexible as a town government, and the flexibility was in line with, okay, give us half of your units that are affordable but at a lower AMI, and we'll give you your development rights. So we worked with them, and we did that several times. The lowest we ever got was 50% affordable housing, 50% market rate, and the 50% affordable had to be at like 60% AMI, something like that. So we got what we wanted, the developer got what they wanted as well. But it was a policy that our town council enacted in, I think it was 2000. Back up there we go. We also gave away water taps, which are very expensive in Breckenridge. I think they're $10,000 for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath unit, something like that. We waived a lot of development fees, building inspection fees. We tried to subsidize, if you will, developers creating affordable units for us. And we allowed, like I said, we allowed greater density in certain parts of the valley floor by selling allowing developers to buy density. So if they had rights for 10 units of development, and to make it pencil, they needed 12, they could go buy 2 more units of density at $50,000 a piece, or whatever the going rate was back in 2000. So it's a number of policies that the town council in 99, 2000 put together, and that laid on top of the Joint Upper Blue Master Plan as well. Next slide. This is an example of a private sector developer who took advantage of this 80-20 rule. This is a developer out of Boulder. I think they're called, well, it's David O'Neill's the developer. He's a terrific developer. He has a corporate name and I can't remember. But he bought a bunch of land, and you know how we have all those rock piles in Breckenridge? We bought a bunch of rock piles, paid $1 million for what just looked like horrible land. And he developed this beautiful neighborhood called the Wellington neighborhood on it. He bought into our 80-20 plan, and he built about 150 units starting in 2000. And this is a picture of, oh, these homes that are probably 10 years old now with nice trees, etc. There's a mixture of single-family homes, multi-family homes with duplexes. There is the ability to build garages if you choose or not. There's enough land on your lot to do that, but it's quite dense. The development, the model came from the Poplar development in Boulder, Colorado, which you can see, or you can see the Wellington neighborhood in Breckenridge. But this was a private developer who took advantage of the free water fees, the development fees, the building fees, etc. And he bought into the 80-20 thing, and we have this beautiful neighborhood that houses, well, it's got to house at least 400 or 500 people. And now he's doing a second phase called Lincoln Park right across the Blue River, right across French Creek from his first development, doing the same exact thing, the 80-20 thing, pencils for him. So it's worked out very well. We have a lot of that mining, refuse, Scrabble, etc. that looks very undevelopable. You guys have beautiful pastures, etc. And so you have land that probably may have higher values than what we have. But that's how we worked it on the gravel piles. Next slide. The other thing, then in 2002, just as I was leaving my first term as a town council person, we did something called the vision statement. Next slide. And this was something that, like somebody said, we're trying to maintain our community character. We're trying to maintain economic viability, sustainability. And I have a kind of an odd definition of community sustainability. It's a lot about the environment. It's also about, can your children come back and live in your neighborhood or live in your community? If they can't, then that's a sustainable community. If they can't, you're too expensive. So we are trying to maintain a level of sustainability so the kids, my kids, other people's kids can come back to our community and live. And it's working in Breckenridge with these neighborhoods. Another thing was we want to take advantage, we want to do the right thing by the built environment. We aren't asking for LEEDs certification, but we're certainly asking for energy efficiency. We're asking for fire-resistant materials in case of wildfire, etc. So we're really putting our kind of thumb down on how this built environment is done. And that's in our code for all forms of building in the town of Breckenridge. Next slide. Oh, you're here. I didn't know you were here. You're my IT person. Then in 2006, the Summit County government put together a ballot initiative. Next slide. And so the county was starting to get on board 10 years ago, and they created this ballot initiative that raises about $800,000 a year for the town of Breckenridge, but it's a county-wide sales tax. It's about 1/8% of the sales tax, and I don't know what that would mean in Chaffee County, but in our community, that brings in several $1 million, and the town's share is $800,000 a year. So over the last 10 years, we've gleaned about $7 million to put into our affordable housing fund. And interestingly, in 2015, the county voted on a new initiative that took a 10-year initiative and turned it into an initiative for perpetuity. So that $700,000 to $800,000 is going to come to Breckenridge every year. And the remainder will go to Frisco, Silverthorne, the Summit County government, et cetera, Dillon. And then just this last year, I'm not updated, on November 8th, contrary to the rest of the country, Summit County passed another initiative that brought in 5/8% sales tax for 10 years. That's going to bring the town of Breckenridge another $2.2, $2.3 million a year for housing, workforce housing, senior housing, et cetera. So our community is fortunate in that we have people that are, willing to tax ourselves, tax our visitors. We do almost everything on a sales tax basis, and it is a way to, I think, and this is me being political, get your users to pay for what they're using. Your users are your tourists, by and large, and they're using your roads, they're using your water, they're using your sewer, and a sales tax, to me, directly targets your users. Certainly your residents are targeted as well, but in the scheme of things, a sales tax, at least in Summit County, has been very effective. So we have a community that is very much behind these sales tax initiatives. I don't know if people will become wallet weary or not, but we're very fortunate in Summit County and the town of Breckenridge that people are willing to prioritize housing. Next slide. This is a town of Breckenridge project. This is called Valley Brook, and this is a piece of property that the town owned, and we decided to, first we were looking at a public-private partnership, and it was 2008, 2009, wasn't going very well, the economy was in a state, and the town decided to just do the project itself. And it was a several $1 million project. It's 45 for-sale units, and it worked out very well for the town. But at the time, we did a housing needs assessment like you guys have done with Melanie Rees out of Crested Butte. And at the time, we were doing a lot of for-sale stuff. We did that rental stuff in '96, then we did Wellington neighborhood, was all for sale. This is for sale. And Melanie said, this is a vote, we need to do some rental. And we didn't get that, but we started doing it. For sale sold out just like that. This met 70 to 80% AMI, I think even some 60. And they're all townhome designs, up and down sort of things. Worked out very well. Next slide. But the town decided to go out and spend several $1 million to do that. This is an example of the private sector building something. This is the Breckenridge ski area. They built 180 units of employee housing for their employees. They are slowly de-restricting it so that they don't use it in the rental market to make money off of it. They're using it for their employees, employees of the community. So there's room in our model for the private sector to build affordable housing. But Breckenridge Ski Area did a great job. They had unfortunately, a black mold problem at first, because they were putting too many people in the units, and everybody was taking showers, and it really was a problem. I think it took probably 10 months to mitigate, but it works great now. Another kind of project we've entered into is what's called a LIHTC project, which stands for Low Income Housing Tax Credit. And this is a project called Pinewood 2. It's right next to Pinewood 1. It's another rental project because we saw the light and decided we'd rather do some rental stuff. LIHTC is a federally funded housing facilitator that oftentimes will put up about 1/3 to 1/2 the money for a project. This was a $10 million project. It cost the town about $5.5 million out of our pocket. And it worked out very well, but they have very stringent requirements on what a LIHTC qualified renter looks like. And there's a lot of 40% AMI stuff in here. So it's the kind of thing that without those tax credits, it's really tough to make it pencil at 40% AMI. AMI, but it was a way to build 45 units. We just opened it this summer, filled up just like that. And the other thing we heard from Melanie Rees was we need to go a little smaller. 1 bedroom and studio apartments are really what you're missing in your inventory of housing. So we would do these things and we listened to Melanie from our housing study, and it helped a lot because it's just rented just like that. We tried, next slide, we tried to do another LIHTC project called Denison Placer, which we're building right now, but it's a very competitive process. We did not get the money. We decided to go ahead and do it anyway. And you know, it's a balancing act. You're spending taxpayers' money, you want to do the right thing. Well, we had the money in the housing fund because of all these nice initiatives. We decided to gut up and spend the money and begin Denison Placer, but we didn't have the restrictions on the AMI requirements. So we have a much broader offering for our public with Denison Placer. We're building 63 units there, and those will be 4 rent units as well. I think that'll be done this spring. But it underscored, I think, and this is kind of an attaboy, it underscored my council's commitment to affordable housing, workforce housing, et cetera. We thought, well, we didn't get the money, we're going to have to dig deep and do it, and we did it. And so we're going to have lots more inventory on tap for people to come. Got this next slide. This is kind of what's working and what are the impacts of having all this wonderful housing and continuing to add to the inventory. You know, the land banking is where we got our start. We started buying property. I was talking to Jill earlier. The Forest Service has been a source for some of our land. We've done some trades where they wanted to get rid of pieces of property that are right in the middle of the town. We had property in the backcountry that we got through our land banking, our backcountry zoning process. We'd trade. So they would have a more contiguous parcel up in the hills. This crummy piece of property right down on Airport Road. So land banking has been very helpful. Working with the Forest Service has been helpful. The annexation policy has been very helpful. It's gotten us 250 units through David O'Neill in the Wellington neighborhood. Low-income housing tax credits worked once. That got us 45 units. And then the public-private partnerships has worked well with the Core Development Group. We hope to do that more in the future. The impacts, decreased commuting. We save, and I didn't believe it when I first heard it, we save 100,000 commuter miles a week by having our workforce housing in the town of Breckenridge. An additional thing to think about is that workforce adds millions of dollars to our economy because they live in the town, they're vested in the community, and they go to the same restaurants I go to, they go to Fatty's, just like any line, they hang out in town. They don't drive to Kremlin or Fairplay or whatever. We still have a lot of people that do that. Almost 50% of our workforce lives and works in Breckenridge, and it's a huge help to our year-round economy. It's not just the tourists, the residents really help the year-round economy. Employee recruitment and retention. I'm a dentist, I have 10 employees. It's not easy when I lose an employee. Well, where am I going to live? I just hired an associate dentist, had to find her housing in January, and it worked, but I was kind of on pins and needles because I needed some help. Talked about the local spending. Now I'm going to talk about families. The unintended but fun consequence of this kind of housing is you get people in places, all of a sudden there's a population boom in Breckenridge. We have so many children in Breckenridge because people are comfortable living in Breckenridge, they're having children, they're getting married, they're not living 5 people to an apartment like they did in the bad old days. So now we have a child care program that we have decided child care and housing go hand in hand. When you have a lot of children, a lot of people living on $15, $18 an hour, those kids have got to go somewhere. So we've created a child care program that mandates that our child care providers provide a living wage for their teachers. They have to start at $15 an hour. We've paid off all their mortgages, and we have a child care assistance program. So if you are making $15 an hour, if you're making $15 an hour, you and your spouse, that's $30 an hour. If you do the math, you're only supposed to spend 15% of your income on childcare. 30% on housing, 15% on childcare. Well, 15% of $30 an hour total is $4.50. You can't buy childcare for that anywhere. Childcare has a cost, and we've mandated that our childcare providers charge 100% of the cost of childcare, and then we backfill what our burdened folks can't handle. And it's very controversial. We lost a ballot issue on it with our community. We tried to do it via property tax. We were voted down as my big defeat as mayor. But the town council said, I won't use the F word, but they just said, screw it, we're going to keep on funding this. We've got a lot of heat from people, but it's the only way people making 50% AMI, 40% AMI, 60% AMI can afford to put their children someplace near where they work. We have 4 terrific daycare providers. My wife was the president of the board of directors for one daycare provider in 1996, and they're still around and they're thriving. They don't have, one place had 90 W-2s in 1 year, and they only needed 12 teachers. That is huge turnover. Children don't like huge turnover. They don't learn when there's huge turnover. So when you do affordable housing, you got to think about the unintended consequences, which I think are great. You got to think about helping out with childcare. Healthcare is a big part of this as well. So that was a big eye-opener for us back in 2004 or 5, but we got it up and decided that childcare was part of this problem. Next slide. So I'm almost at the end. What's next? We already increased the impact fee. That passed very handily on November 8th. We're trying to involve employers. We have a lot of big employers in the community, and I'm going to throw our school district under the bus. You can hear me out. They don't get it that they're big employers. They don't participate. They have land, and I have chastised them every chance I get. They got to throw some land under it. We'll build the housing. You got to have housing for your staff. You got to have housing for your teachers. They do nothing. And, oh yeah, that's a great idea, John. They just passed a $74 million bond for, I guess, what do you think? Hardware? Stick to the knitting. Okay.
It's their buildings.
Yeah, they're sticking to buildings, leaky roofs, stuff like that, but they didn't put any money in for housing. And I think that's wrong. The Scary built 180 units. Beaver Run Resort, which is a huge hotel, built about 50 units years ago. I think if you're a big employer, you ought to be involved in this conversation. And so the school district knows how I feel. They wanted me to do a radio ad pushing for this $74 million bond. I said, no, you don't have housing in here. I'm not going to do it. So I'm kind of at odds with our school district. Have I done that? Okay. It's just okay. That's employer involvement, and I think it's great. Preservation of units and buy down, it's really hard to do. We've got, back in 2008, 2009, when the economy was in terrible shape, there were lots of condos for sale for $180, $210. We bought like 6 of them, fixed them up, and then we resold them at about $150, $160. So yeah, we added 6 units to our inventory, but now in the same places are going for 400, 380, stuff like that. We just don't put our money there. But it's a way to do things. Monitoring and administering these deed restrictions is very difficult. It's time consuming. One of the things in 2006, we created this Summit County Combined Housing Authority. That was their job, is to follow these deed restrictions. And it's tough. People are trying to game the system all the time. We had a Princeton professor buy an affordable housing unit, said he was going to live in Breckenridge. He short-term rented it and threw him out because he bought a restricted unit. You're not supposed to do that. So you got to keep an eye on these people. these folks. Challenges, retired employees. If you live in Breckenridge if you work in Breckenridge for 7 years, you've worked 30 hours a week, you can stay in your deed-restricted place. Anything less than that, you need to find housing if you're choosing to retire in Breckenridge. We're not building, at least in Breckenridge, we're not building these units to house our seniors. It sounds a little cold, but we really have huge workforce needs, and I'm a senior citizen by many years, and I'm okay with it. Most of our seniors come in, they have a business, they do well, and then they retire, they already have a house. I'm not sure we need to provide housing on the ground for our senior citizens. That's what we talked about. What else is good? Yeah, town of Breckenridge is going to go through some redevelopment. There are going to be pressures to make the town taller, more dense. Our building code doesn't allow taller. We could be more dense though. And so we might see some affordable housing projects come out of that. Limited resources, I made it sound like we have just tons of money. Well, if you add it all up, yeah, we have maybe $3 or $4 million a year. These projects cost $10 to $20 million. So we just can't probably build our way out of this, but we're giving it a good shot. But NIMBYism, I talked to Jill about it a little bit. NIMBYism, you need to, I think, we have disregarded. NIMBY means not in my backyard. And I'm sure there's a lot of it in Chaffee County, a ton of it in Summit County. I'm not going to let those people live near me. My property values will go down. None of that's true. None of that is happening. Everywhere there's one of these neighborhoods, people want to be in those neighborhoods. People that have money and wealth want to be in these neighborhoods. So I would discount NIMBYism as much as you can. And competing priorities, yeah, the town of Breckenridge has a lot of priorities. We just nixed a $50 million water treatment plan, which I think we should have, but how do you spend $50 million on a water treatment plan? You've got $50 million for the housing needs. You can't do it all. So town councils have to make priorities. And the last thing is market pressure. You guys are getting it, certainly in Salida. I don't know about Muni, but you got tons of people like me from Denver buying up your houses sight unseen, and that lowers your amount of housing stock that you can rent or people can buy, etc. So there are very significant market pressures. I think that's all I have. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll take any questions if you have any.
Let's just take 2 questions, and then we're going to have a 5-minute break. We'll get back to the schedule.
So we have read literature about Breckenridge and housing problems here. But one of the things that we see when we deal with the affordable housing vacation rentals is that Breckenridge has 40% vacation rentals in the town. I'm wondering if you touch on that, if it's true, and how that affects the quality of life. And the others, you touched on the deed restricted a little bit, but without the deed restrictions, then you have to qualify those people. Otherwise, people just come and buy those up and then go through the roof.
Yeah, I'll answer that one first and the other one second. The deed restrictions, I didn't really get into specifics because all the projects have different deed restrictions. Most of them are similar, and so the basic part of it is you can only see your property appreciate 3% per year. You can only put so many capital improvements on your property, and the reason is that accelerates the creep problem. The creep problem is you buy something for $220, you put a $30,000 garage on it, $10,000 hot tub in the back over a period of years, you finish your basement. Now the place from a cost per square foot is worth just $400,000 just for that. Well, all of a sudden that $220,000 place is worth way too much. You never get your money back because you only get a 3% appreciation. So then you're angry. So we have some caps on capital improvements unless you want to lose money. And people can do that, but they got to know that. So that's one of them. Then there are work requirements, and deed restricted to units. You have to work 30 or 32 hours a week. I can't remember the other ones, but those are some of the specifics. Back to the VRBO question. Yeah, we have a lot of VRBOs. That's one thing my wife is trying to do with her program, and she'll correct me if I make a mistake. You got a VRBO, you're renting it all the time, you're making a ton of money, but you're kind of tired of the wear and tear on your unit. Carrie's program is, look, we'll manage it for you. We won't charge you to manage it, correct? And you know you're going to get X number of dollars a month, $2,000 a month, $2,500 a month. So she's trying to turn the tables on landlords who are struggling with the upkeep, et cetera. They will do everything for you, and you reap an income, a revenue stream that you can count. So that's one way that we're dealing with VRBOs. The other is CAST, Colorado Association of Ski Towns, and our town manager, Tim Gagan, created a program and a legal kind of protocol to scrape VRBO sites to get our due for lodging taxes. And the lodging tax in Breckenridge is like 3%, and we think lodgers use our streets, they use our parking places, they use our toilets, etc. They should pay something. So a lot of the VRBOs were not complying, so people were coming into town using the services, leaving town and using the services, so it was affecting us in a negative way. Now we're seeing lots more revenue come in with VRBOs. But, even deeper into your question, VRBOs are tough on the community. We lived in a neighborhood before we downsized, where across the street was a wedding house. They have 7 bedrooms, 22 people sitting there, 15 cars out front. Sometimes they park in our driveway, and it affects the neighborhood. So we have fairly stringent rules and regulations to not allow VRBOs to affect the neighborhood. But it's not easy, and all the enforcement comes from either our town of Breckenridge or the Summit County Combined Housing Authority. Does that help? Some of those questions.
Final question. Please feel free, you can always arm wrestle with John after a session during lunch. Final question?
Are you saying that like the deed restrictions, all these AMIs that you're checking, you have a housing authority that is actually monitoring that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's countywide, and so they have a big job. So they do a great job. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, John. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break, stretch your legs, get some coffee, and listen to the teacher when he calls you back.